I have to wait for her to join. But I'll just start by talking a little bit about Project Proactive and why I started the page, what exactly the page is. I started the page last May in Mental Health Awareness Month. I work as a behavioral health counselor in downtown Chicago. And I also work with an organization called Hope for the Day that does proactive suicide prevention through education and outreach. And I was doing a lot of work with the general public, and a topic that came up a lot. Oh, Rachel's on. How do we join? Rachel, can you join me when you're ready? Tell me if I'm doing something wrong. Anyway, a topic that came up a lot and pretty much every day in my life is how to break the stigma of mental illness. Stigma. Yes. Rachel. Yeah. Anyway, so it came up all the time. And hey, Rachel.
Hi, I'm listening.
Okay, I'll just finish what I'm saying about Project Proactive, and then we'll move to you. So, so it came up all the time, and then I realized I'm putting a lot of effort in to helping break the stigma in the general public and general community, and, you know, what am I doing for my community, for the Jewish community? I hadn't heard a lot about, you know, mental illness conversations in the open in the Jewish community, so that's kind of where I started with this page. And then I kind of slowed down a little bit because I had a lot going on in my life, and also I got a little bit overwhelmed by the culture of Instagram and of social media in general. I don't love the way it makes me feel, but recently a friend of mine joined the account to help me, you know, restart and build momentum again because it's such an important cause. Her name's Rebecca Shapiro, and so together we're trying to work more closely to bring you guys initiatives of mental health initiatives and bring more consistency, and kind of bring the Jewish community together to start some kind of movement to make mental health more of a topic, more of a trend, so that we can break the stigma together. And, you know, I'm not an organization. I'm really one person, now two people, and really just all of you and whatever you guys can bring to the table with your expertise, your own experiences. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But anyway, so I wanted to start Mental Health Mondays to kind of kick Project Proactive into full gear and kind of get started, bring everyone together. So anyway, we brought Rachel on today. So thank you so much for your time, Rachel. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself? I don't know.
Sure.
It's loading for me. I don't know, like your face is loading. I don't know if that's.
Can you guys see me? I guess people will let you know. So I love this project. I love that you're back and doing it, and I love that Rebecca's part of it, because I think Rebecca and I go way back, like a million years ago, probably since we were like 10 years old. I don't even know, a long time. So I know that she's going to be really amazing helping you doing this, and I love that we're doing this because we do need to talk about mental health, like in the general world, but especially in the Jewish world. We need to be talking about it. So I love that you're doing this, and I'm glad that it's like full force, and I love this initiative of like the Mental Health Monday. So I just want to say that. So I am Rachel Tuckman, and I am a licensed mental health counselor. I work in the 5 towns out of my office in Cedarhurst, and I work with kids and adults. I do a lot of parent training, parenting courses, and I also work with women with infertility, post-hysterectomy. That's my niche. The bulk of my client caseload right now is really kids, but I work with adults also, and that kind of stuff. So we were going to talk tonight, I guess, about I think this is part of breaking the stigma, is talking about it. Like, let's just talk about it. Let it be a discussion, like a normal thing. Like, we talk about going to the gym, and we talk about cooking and baking, and we talk about school, and we talk about all these things, but then there's some things that like we don't talk about. And I think that the more we talk about things, the more normal and part of the conversation to become. So I think this is so important. So I guess I'll let you like lead, Shoshana. Like, I don't know. What do you want to do here? Should I just start?
Yeah, well, we have a list of topics, so let's just get
Okay.
started on the list. And then I'll ask you a few questions on those topics, and then at the end we can kind of open up the floor to Q&A if anyone has any questions or follow-up comments. All right, so, well, the first topic we wanted to kind of discuss is mental health versus mental illness. A lot of times these two terms are used interchangeably, and I know even in the beginning when I got started in the field, I didn't really understand the difference between them. So I just wanted to know if you could talk a little bit about what the difference is. Is there a difference? What people should know about the difference?
Yes. Okay. So mental health is something that we all have. Everybody has mental health. And our mental health is basically our well-being, our thoughts, our emotions, our feelings, our social connections, how we understand the world, how we adapt and cope with change. We all have it, right? So our mental health, like how we'll see it manifest is like how productive we are in our daily activities. So at work, at school, with our friends, with our families, our ability to have healthy relationships, and how we adapt to like adversity, right? And how we deal with change. So that's really what mental health is. It's really our overall well-being. So everybody has that. Everyone has mental health. Mental illness, not everybody has this. And that basically affects the way that people think and behave and interact with other people as well as themselves. So you might see someone with a mental illness, they have significant changes in their thoughts and their emotions, their behavior. They'll have problems functioning socially, at work, with friends, like that. It'll really impact their lives. So that's a mental illness. So just like we have physical health and then we have illnesses, right? And our illness impacts our physical health and our ability to function. This is the same thing. We have our mental health and then we have illnesses that can impact our ability to function. But just like you can treat a physical illness, and even if it's chronic, like Alzheimer's or diabetes or arthritis or whatever it is, you can either slow the process or make it less or make it something you can live with, like MS also. Any of these chronic diseases, you can treat them so that you can still function even with that mental illness, with that chronic illness. It's the same thing with mental illness. You can still function well and even better than someone who doesn't necessarily have mental illness. So I think that's important for us to know also, because a lot of the time we say, oh, that person has mental illness, like something's wrong with them. But I've seen people in my practice who have mental illness who have it more together than people who don't have anything diagnosed. So mental illness is not indicative of your success in life. You can have a mental illness but still have high mental health, or you can have low mental health with no mental illness at all. So that's not indicative of your ability to function. Poor mental health can lead to mental illness. That's definitely a factor. But there's also genetic predisposition. There's environmental factors. Like there's so much stuff that causes or that's linked to having a mental illness. So it's important to know that there's like a lot of different causes. It's not the result of one event. And it's a medical condition. And I think that's also part of why like the stigma is not gone at all, but there's a better understanding and more acceptance coming out now because people are understanding mental illness as like a disease, that they understand that it's a medical condition like heart disease or diabetes. It's not like a character flaw or like, oh, that guy's so messed up, what's with him? Like it's something that it's treatable and it's something that's like a brain disorder, So that's kind of what we're learning as we discuss more. And that's why discussing is important, because with conversation comes knowledge and education. So that's like the mental illness and mental health piece. I hope that was a clear definition.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
A lot of good insight. So you touched on this a little bit, but you talked a little bit about how mental health could be compared to physical health. We could think about it in a similar way to physical health. Can you elaborate a little bit more on, the topic of comparing the two and being able to view them in a similar way, how we can kind of normalize the importance of keeping up with our mental health in the same way as it's so normal to keep up with our physical health.
Right. So the World Health Organization actually says, like, there's no health without mental health. So just like we are so focused on like putting the right foods in our body and exercising and making sure that we're, not exercising for weight loss, exercising for health. And we're doing all of these things. Like, it's like in our culture now to like try this gluten-free and dairy-free and eliminate this and do this and toxins from your body. Like, we're all into that physical, detoxing. The same thing we should be doing with our mental health. Like, we should also be looking at the fact that there are things that we can do to improve our mental health, things that we can do to kind of like put us at lower risk for having mental illness or just mental health issues. Not everyone will experience mental illness throughout the course of their lifetime, but everybody will experience some kind of mental health issue, right? So you might feel down because, you didn't get a job, or you broke up with your boyfriend, or you failed a test, or you're in a fight with someone in your family, or there's so many things that cause mental health problems. And I think people don't even think of it in that way. Like, oh, I don't have a relationship with my mom. That's just like life. No, that's considered a mental health problem. That's, you could go to a therapist to deal with that. Or you broke up with your boyfriend and you can't get past it. That's a mental health problem. But people get so freaked out. Wait, what do you mean that's mental health? Like, I thought mental health means I'm schizophrenic or bipolar or I have OCD. No, again, mental health, like I said, it's our well-being. It's our overall, like our relationships, our thoughts, our feelings, our coping with life. So if life throws you for a loop and you experience loss, or you're having trouble with your kids, or you can't find a partner to marry and it's stressing you out and that's, ruining your life, that's a mental health problem. So again, and just like when we're not feeling good physically, we'll go to the doctor. We'll ask, we'll get opinions on like what's wrong and what kind of treatment and what should I do to, deal with this chronic back pain or whatever it is. We should be reaching out and asking also how to deal with our mental health things. Also, go to a therapist, go to a psychiatrist, go to whoever to be taking care of your mental health. Some people, again, like the gym is like a mental health thing for them. Like, that's their release and that's the way they take care of themselves and that's how they handle their issues. But that's, again, like that's taking care of your health and mental health. And I think it's super important that we recognize that you can't neglect your mental health and then think that it's not going to affect your physical health. We know that there's also so many negative effects of you're not feeling good mentally on your body, so there's so many studies on trauma and the effect on your body, and that it could cause serious illnesses and cause things like heart attack and fibromyalgia and like just crazy things that if we're not taking care of ourselves, it affects our body, so I think that we just need to focus on, just like we're so obsessed with like making sure we eat right and we exercise and we move and whatever, we should also be making sure that when things stress us out, we're dealing with it. We're talking about it. When we feel like it's getting too heavy, we go and maybe say like, you know what, maybe I should talk to someone, just a few sessions just to like get it out there and deal with it. And we prioritize it the same way we prioritize sticking to that, meal plan or sticking to that gym regimen that we're doing. This should be like right up there on the list, scheduling that therapy appointment. And another thing is that it's so available to us now. Like, so many people, I can't get to the gym and I don't have time to make meals. Therapy, you can Skype from your office during your lunch break. There's telemental health now. So there's really like no excuse. You don't have to go into the therapist's office. You can meet them from your phone, from your computer. At night when you get home, there's so much availability now for mental health treatment that there's really like no excuse. Like, you have more excuses not to go to the gym than to not see a therapist, So it's important. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of something that you touched on a little bit about, by understanding that mental health relates to everybody, like not just illness, not just people who are going through crises. Everybody is on a mental health spectrum. Makes it a little less scary to think about mental health as a topic that people can relate to. But so anyway, now that we kind of covered a little bit of ground on mental health, physical health, could you talk a little bit about mental illness? Maybe a little bit about, the prevalence of mental illness in the Jewish communities, or just from your experience that you've seen. Maybe it's more common than we realize, and maybe just kind of talk about some of the more common mental illnesses out there and just mental illness in general.
Definitely. So the statistics in the Jewish community are not any different than like the just regular world. Like it's the same for us. So the stats are like 1 in every 5 adults will have some form of mental illness. So in America, that's about like 43 million people with mental illness. 1 in 17 of those will have a serious mental illness. So it could be schizophrenia or bipolar. Depression and anxiety are the most common. But mental illness there's so many ranges. It could be mild, moderate, severe. Like it's really, there's not like a one, the most common types of mental illness, like I said, depression and anxiety are like the 2 biggest ones. Then there's mood disorders like bipolar, personality disorders. So some of you know, like antisocial personality or narcissistic or borderline. You may have heard of these. Histrionic. Then there's schizophrenia. Trauma disorders are big. Eating disorders, addiction. Those are really like the most common ones. The DSM, with the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual, that lists all the psychological disorders, but the main ones that are, I guess, most commonly diagnosed are those: that depression, anxiety, mood, personality disorders, addiction. And again, we know that these exist in the Jewish community. We know that addiction is a problem. We know that there's eating disorders. We know that there's trauma, suicides, and we're not exempt from it. This is like the human condition. And I feel like we need to acknowledge it and stop pretending that it doesn't exist and stop feeling ashamed that it does exist. I feel like the more we try to mask it, the more we just kind of like help that shame grow, because then it's not just about like, oh, I'm depressed and I feel so bad, but it's also, I have something to be embarrassed about. And that only makes that depression even worse, which, in the beginning, maybe it was a depression that could have been treated and helped, but then it turns into a depression that's like this endless black hole where then someone feels like they need to commit suicide because there's no way out. I can't talk to anyone. I can't tell anyone. I can't, so I feel like we need to start having that conversation and letting people know they can talk about it and there is help. So I think we're kind of like starting that road. And I feel like social media can be so great in this respect. Like I have like a love-hate relationship with social media, which I'm sure you probably also do. I love it because it happens to be that my professional page, I love. I don't follow anyone that I don't like or that annoys me, or I really like feel so empowered when I see my page because it's just like, it's such a positive, good place. And I see there is so much discussion about mental health and fulfillment and relationships and becoming a better person and taking care of your body in a healthy way through intuitive eating and getting rid of, body shaming and diet culture. Like there's so much good. And I see also some of these people that I follow, like, are being also open about therapy, so I just saw the other day that the Frock, I don't know if you follow them, but the Frock was like talking about how Tuesdays is like, they're like therapy Tuesdays. Like she was talking about how like everybody goes to therapy in their office. And I love that she just said it like so casually and like, it was like a nothing thing. Like, yeah, we go to therapy. And for her, it might've been like a nothing to say, but it was such a powerful moment because she was making it normal and maybe even cool to some people, maybe to some of their younger followers, like, oh, they go to therapy, like I can go to therapy. The Frock goes to therapy, I want to go to therapy. So I feel like the more we're just open about it and we say that it's something we do, just like I'm going to the gym this morning and I'm cooking for, whatever, and I'm going grocery shopping, also like therapy, I saw also that I don't really love her account, but I saw that Ariel Charnas, the something Navy, she also like posted a couple times that she goes to CBT therapy, which again, like I also love that she has this massive following also, and she was talking about how she goes to therapy too for her anxiety. So I like that. I like that it's becoming more like kind of cool and like normal, and talking about it is okay. We have a long way to go, but I think that's like super important. So the stats are back to that. The stats are they're the same in the Jewish community, but it's there, it's common, and we need to start addressing it. And thinking like, oh, because we don't do this because we're religious, or we our kids don't have exposure to that because they're in yeshivas. Like, that's just naive. We live in the real world, and we have all of the same challenges and exposures as the rest of the world, because we take buses and we take airplanes and we drive in cars and we see billboards and we go to the same places and we shop in the same stores and we live in the same neighborhoods. Like, we're not, we're exposed to it all. So for us to think that we're like untouchable is dangerous and naive. So the Jewish community is just as much affected by all of these things. I wouldn't say more, but just as much as the rest of the world. And we need to like accept that and start dealing with it,
Yeah. So, right. Yeah. So obviously it affects the Jewish community, even if we don't hear about it so much. And it also seems like there's been progress in the past, I would say, few months, maybe year. So do you have any thoughts or ideas of, I mean, it sounds like you believe, I think a lot of us believe that there is ability to change the stigma, ability to break the stigma. I mean, we've seen progress in the world in general. What kind of steps can we take as a community, as the Jewish community, to kind of get us the next step closer to accepting mental illness and mental health for what it is and normalizing it?
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing is like kind of understanding like what is a stigma anyway, right? We hear the word all the time. Like, do we even know really what it is? So a stigma really is like when you're viewing someone in a negative way because they have this characteristic or personality trait that you think, or maybe it actually is like a disadvantage. So you're like negatively stereotyping them. So sometimes we'll hear that someone maybe has a mental health problem, a mental illness, and then we're like, oh, like I don't want them to go out with I don't want that guy to go out with my sister, like his parents are divorced. Oh yeah. Or I don't want him to go out with her. I heard that he had depression when he was in high school. Or his brother's an addict. So those are stigmatic phrases, and that's just reinforcing the stigma. So I think part of changing it is we need to talk about it, right? We need to talk openly about it, understand it more, define what certain disorders are, and understand what it means to treat them, and what is the treatment, and what does it mean to live with that mental illness or mental disorder. And again, going back to what I said before, you can have a mental illness and have great mental health. Just because you have bipolar doesn't mean that your life is falling apart. You can be living better than someone who doesn't have bipolar. You could have a functional marriage and a great job and a great life, and the guy down the street from you that doesn't have it, his wife is cheating, his kids hate him, his job, he just got fired, his life sucks, he wants to kill himself, but you have bipolar and you're doing better than him. So again, it doesn't matter. A mental illness is not indicative of like your ability to function in life. So I think education, being aware of our own attitudes towards mental health. So again, if you hear like, oh, someone comes from a divorced family, are you judging them? Oh, he probably doesn't know what it means to have a marriage. Like, okay, so we need to start looking at that. Like, we know that that's not based on reality, because we know that there are couples that stay together that the marriage is not great and kids are growing up in dysfunctional homes, or kids that come out of divorces whose parents get to have a good marriage. They just have a healthy outlook, or they had their parents had a horrible divorce and they want to do better. Like we can't assign like personality traits to certain mental illnesses or mental health problems. So that comes from education. That comes from being aware of our own attitudes and our own judgments. We have to be honest about treatment. So if you have a mental health issue or a mental illness, you have to be honest about what you need. You have to say, I'm not like, I can't be worried about what everybody thinks. Like, I need to reach out to a therapist. I need to contact a psychiatrist. My life is falling apart. And a lot of the time people don't do that, and they keep hiding stuff, and they keep trying to keep up that facade, and they're falling apart, and it's just getting worse and worse. And I always say, like, it's going to come to a head. You can only keep that up for so long, you know? So be honest about what you need if you're going through something. We should also be conscious of our language. And I've actually posted about this a couple of times. Like, a lot of the time, you know, we throw around things like, oh, I'm so OCD, or oh, he's so bipolar. And we're not understanding like what those words really mean. And I think that when we're so casual about them, that kind of perpetuates the stigma and makes people not understand. Like, so bipolar, oh, so, you know, like, you're throwing a tantrum 1 minute and then you're super happy the next minute. That's not what bipolar is. Like, yes, there are highs and lows, but it doesn't look like that, you know? And then we don't understand it. And then we start, you know, attaching certain judgments on a person who may have bipolar, who, again, like I said before, might be more functional than you who doesn't have bipolar, you know? And we should encourage, like you were saying before, we should encourage equality between mental health and physical health. So just like we think it's so important to go to the doctor if you're not feeling well, to get a flu shot, if you have, God forbid, cancer, that you go for that chemotherapy and you take care of it and you do that radiation. And if there's some kind of, you know, study that they're doing that seems really hopeful, we encourage people, go try it, do whatever you can, like you want it. Why aren't we saying the same thing to somebody who has a mental health issue or a mental illness? Go get help. Do whatever you can to make things better. Like, we want you to live the best life. Instead, we're like, shh, don't. Your sister's not going to get a shit off. Stop. Don't talk about it. You know, go live somewhere else if you're going to do that. You're embarrassing the family. And we're not dealing with it, and we're just compounding shame. So I think that if we do that, if we try to change it, then through helping people better recognize mental illness, and being better equipped to handle it, and through helping people who are struggling get the best help and treatment possible, and reducing discrimination and not being judgmental and hostile towards people with mental illness, I think that that's going to be part of like how we make the change. But that's going to take, like I said, a lot of introspection on our part, you know, on each individual's part. Like, what are my feelings and thoughts and judgments, and what am I scared of? And if you're going through something currently in your life and you're like, I'm not going to see a therapist, or even your child. I've had people call me and say, like, I want to bring my kid to therapy, but like, I don't want anyone to know about it. Like, and I told her she can't tell anyone about it. And that's like so disturbing to me, because again, that's only making the stigma worse, and also carrying it down then to your child, who feels like there's something wrong with them for coming to me. And then I'll tell the parent, like, you probably don't want to bring your kid to me then, because like they're going to feel like they're cuckoo for coming to my office. Like, they're not going to feel good about seeing me. So I think that we have to also, as parents, as adults, as role models, as leaders, we need to start normalizing it and talking about it, and not being ashamed, and understanding that it's just as valuable as, you know, cutting back on caffeine, or not drinking too much soda, or, you know, getting to that gym and taking the stairs instead of the elevator, going to therapy, seeing your therapist, talking to someone, you know, being open about mental health, not being ashamed, and not passing it down to the next generation by telling your kids, like, don't tell anyone that you go to a therapist, or, you know, like, that's like really disappointing and disheartening. So I think that's how the change is gonna happen, and I think it's necessary. And I think that stuff like this, Project Proactive, lives where we talk about things that people like are thinking about and talking about, there's so much relief, I feel like, when we have these discussions. I know for me, I get so much feedback afterwards, like, thank you, and you said what I was feeling and what I was thinking, what I was nervous about and what I was scared about, and I know that I'm not alone. let's talk about it more. Let's show people you're not alone. You're not the only one who's going through that. There's, you know, everyone and their mother is having some kind of issue. So let's talk about it. And let's make it not so bad and not so scary, you know, not taboo.
Yeah.
I feel like I just talked forever.
What's that?
I feel like I just talked a lot.
No, that was amazing. I actually took notes even. Yeah, so I mean, that sounds a lot of really good tips for personal level and even a communal level. You know, on the personal level, education, being honest with yourself, language, being careful of your language, being open with the people around you. And you touched a little bit about on a communal level, a collective level. From, you know, Project Proactive perspective, I think, you know, like I got started in this because I think there's so much potential with the, you know, pressures of social media for, you know, negativity, but also for positivity. And I just see a world where we can work together as a community through social media, through, you know, using our voices, sharing our stories at the time that you might feel comfortable, even if it's anonymous. You know, working collectively to think of different ideas as a community to normalize it, to break the stigma. I just wanted to wrap up the questions and these topics by kind of presenting a challenge to you guys who are listening, and the Jewish community in general to, you know, think of more ways to collectively work together to break the stigma as a community. DM me if you think of anything, because I'd like to actually bring them to action, make them happen. And so that's how I'd want to wrap up those questions. And then if anyone has any Q&A questions, Rachel maybe will take some time to answer those. I don't know if as we were going.
Try. I'll try. I mean, something I do want to add also is like, you know, it's not just like, I mean, there's also things like shidduchim and infertility and marriage issues and kids who have learning issues. Like, again, this is all mental health stuff. Like, parents are embarrassed to put their kid in a resource room and get them a tutor, or, you know, or go to someone and say, like, my kid is having a hard time dating, or to go for fertility treatments, like, to God forbid tell anyone, so that, you know, what doctor should I go to? What, like, maybe I'm seeing the wrong, you know, and I deal with that a lot with the couples that I see with infertility, like, just feeling lost and having nowhere to go and no one to talk to. And, like, if we would talk more about these things, people would know who to go to and who to ask questions to, and we could prevent so much anguish. And for me, like, definitely with the infertility stuff, like, I went through it, so I know that when I went through it, I had no one to talk to, and I was very lost for a long time. So I said, like, I'm going to be the person people know, oh, you're going through infertility, go to Rachel Tuckman. She talks about it, because I want them to feel that I'm their source, you know, like, I went through it. I know the doctors. I ask about the different practices, even though I'm not even, that's not my world anymore, meaning I'm not involved in it as like a patient anymore, but I make it my business to know what's going on so that I can be a source of information and support, and not just as a therapist, like, you don't have to make an appointment with me to get information or support, but also just as someone who went through it, and I talk about it. Like, it shouldn't be that it's like a scar or a stain. Like, this is what it is. It's something that I did not have control over, and I'm not embarrassed and I'm not ashamed, and I want people to know that. Like, you don't have to be embarrassed or ashamed. I think there's more shame in hiding it. That's something to be more embarrassed about, not being willing to reach out and ask for help. That's more embarrassing to me than it is to just say, like, you know what, I need help. Like, why do we have to drown? Like, just reach out and ask for someone's hands, you know, and like, try to make things better for yourself. Like, why stay a victim? So I think that's important. I think rabbis also need to kind of stand up more in shul and, like, talk about these things, you know, and know more about what resources are available. And I think they do in some communities for the most part. Like I think my community where I live in Woodmere is pretty good, but I still think there's a lot of work to do. Like we should be, encouraging families who went through hard things to like stand up in shul and Shabbos and tell their story so people can see there's a face to a family that went through something hard and they can reach out to them. A family has to be willing to do that, to talk about their child's suicide or their child's addiction or their struggle with infertility or their, problem with their kid who, had learning problems. They have to be willing to do it. But I think that would be something amazing if we could kind of make like awareness Shabbases every once in a while, that someone in the community gets up and puts a face to, I went through this. I think it's important for people to see like also, we think everyone's life is so perfect. And then the people that stand up with those stories, sometimes it's very surprising. So I think that might be something I've like thought about for a long time and something I tried to do years ago and then life got busy and I didn't do it. But I think that would be something that could be like amazing and powerful and helpful. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
Great thoughts. Did we miss any questions from the beginning? I can't multitask so well, but before we wrap
So I saw there were some questions. I'm looking.
right.
Hold on. So Elisheva, I love Elisheva. She's great. She said, be there for people who are suffering. When someone has a physical illness, people step up to help, right? Totally. They're bringing meals. There's a meal train, right? When we can normalize mental health, we can help each other when help is needed. Yes. Like we know when someone's sick, everyone's making meals for them and Tehillim groups and this and that. But if someone has mental illness, like we're not talking about it, the DSM is so limited. Most of these diagnoses trace back to trauma and how nervous system is. I don't listen. The DSM is a guide. Obviously, we learn in grad school. You learn as a psychologist. You're really not supposed to like stick to labeling a diagnosis on a client, but like it's a guide. Like if we know what this is, if we can characterize it, we know better how to treat it. So like you kind of have to use your DSM as a guide. My therapist says 20% of people bother getting help and only 20% of those are willing to do the work. Okay. Yeah, probably true. Someone said, how can one find a good therapist? So that's a good question. So definitely referrals from your friends, your rabbi, your yoetzet, your doctor, family members. Go on social media and find awesome therapists that you like. Definitely like looking, that's your way to find a good therapist. And then having a phone consult with them. And I always say treat that phone consult like your first date. Like ask questions and see what the vibe is. And it's really like a date. So I don't like when people say like, oh, I tried therapy. It's not for me. I hate it. No, that's like saying like I tried dating. I'm never going to date again. It's not for me. I hate it. Then you'll never find anyone. Like you went on some bad dates. Eventually you're going to find a good date, right? So it's a matter of finding the right therapist. So just keep trying and it's going to be annoying, but when you really do know when you meet the right one. Says our mental health can affect our physical health. Ellie Chevy, you're killing it with the wisdom here. And the opposite is true. Yes. Like I said, like if your mental health is no good, that can affect your body and how you feel. You'll feel run down. You'll feel tired. You can get sick. It's just not a good thing. Is it going to be saved on YouTube? We'll talk about how you save it when you're done, Shoshana. What else? I'm seeing if there's anything else that I missed. Here, there's more. Do you think actors and musicians talking about their mental health is helpful? So that's a good question. I do think it's helpful. And I think that like Hollywood as like whatever yucky as it can be, I think the fact that like they make it like cool and like it's like a thing that they're talking about is super helpful. Just like I feel like with fertility also, that suddenly it was like cool to do IVF and all these people were talking about egg freezing and like it became less taboo. I think the same thing with mental health. Like it's definitely helpful. The more we talk about it, the better. can it be that bringing all the feelings up in the sessions are going to make it worse and more confusing? Yes. Yes. And that's why you keep going to therapy. It's not comfortable. Therapy does not feel good. When you go to the gym and you're lifting 15 pounds in each hand and squatting at the same time, does that feel good? No. But when you leave, you know you did something good for your body. I always say if you leave your therapy room like feeling amazing and you love your therapist, they're probably not very good. You should once in a while be angry at them and not like them, you know? Not always, but once in a while you should be like, oh, I did not like what she was saying. Like you shouldn't always feel comfortable and like happy. They should be challenging you and calling you out on things. What if someone is depressed due to a loss and pushes away her friends by accident and then is all alone? I don't know what the question is. Like, I mean, you reach out and see if she wants help. I don't understand that question really. If you do, Shoshana, please help me. Were you as open about your infertility while you were in the trenches going through it, or only in retrospect? I was open about it when I was going through it. I was like talking to people and asking for help, and I wrote an article that was published on Aish during my whole trial. I was open about it. And then I said, I'm going to continue to be open about it because even after I had my second child, because it was secondary infertility, I still could not have another one after that. And I was very open about, yeah, I'm going to try IVF. And I always spoke about it. I never thought that there was anything embarrassing or shameful. Do you think it's helpful for the person to be so open and honest about their personal life experiences? In therapy, yes. Like on social media, probably not. We should use filters and we shouldn't be, always like putting all our laundry out for everyone to see. Talk about educating ourselves on signs, not to be blinded by them. Act on it. Might be too late if not. So I'm not sure what that means, but I love Jen, so I'm gonna just like answer the way I think. I think that sometimes there are signs of mental illness or signs of mental health problems, and like we poo-poo them, and we're like, it's fine, I'll deal with it, or I'll just do this, or I'll just do that, it'll go away, and then it doesn't go away, and it gets worse. And I think that again, that's why this discussion is important, because if we can make people aware, like, this is a problem that, like, if you feel like you can't cope with it, you should be reaching out to someone for help. Then I think that makes it easier for people to get help because they are aware of it, and then they're not being blind. They're being open and honest about their problems, and they're saying, you know what, I remember Shoshana spoke about this. I remember Rachel spoke about this. I remember, whoever on Instagram mentioned this. Like, you know what, I think I'm going to go talk to someone and get like a professional opinion. You can follow Shoshana on Project Proactive if they want to follow you.
My last name is Mailer. I guess I don't talk about that enough. Shoshana Mailer, but I'm on the Project Proactive page.
Yeah, you can follow her here. This is her page. But I think it's so important, and I love that you're doing it. And like, there needs to be more of this. We need to talk about it, and we need to make it normal, and we need to be open. And just think about, and I always tell people this when I talk about my infertility, and they're like, oh my gosh, thank you. Or if I talk about, I had a loss in between, like I did an IVF and then it didn't, like it worked, and then I had to I lost the pregnancy, and then I did another one. And when I tell people about the IVF and the loss, people are like, oh, thank you for telling. And I felt so alone, and I felt so alone. And I say, like, the relief that you're feeling, like from hearing my story, like remember that. And you talk about it too, like that you're not alone and that you're not like some freak of nature. Like, remember that. And people, just like you're not judging me and thinking, I mean, maybe some are, but most are not. Just like you're not judging me, no one's going to judge you. People feel better and comforted, and it's so important to do that, to talk about it and not feel ashamed. When noticing someone close to you is going through something, approach the situation. Notice the signs. Oh, okay. Thank Thank you, Jen. She's so smart. I love Jen. So yes, if you see someone's going through something, that's like a touchy subject. People will ask me, oh, I think that my sister's depressed, or I think my cousin is in like a bad marriage. Like, what should I do? So those are touchy subjects. Like there's some things you can't get involved. Like you can't, be like, oh, leave your husband or whatever. But you can say like, hey, I noticed like, is everything okay? I feel like you look a little down, or like, I noticed that you seem stressed. Is everything okay? I'm here for you. You can send articles. You can say, hey, follow this person on social media. Follow Shalom Task Force. Follow Yesh Tikva. Follow Nechama Comfort. Follow Project Proactive. Like you can kind of steer them in the right direction. That's why because back when I was going through infertility, there wasn't that stuff. And when people were going through, postpartum depression and all these things that they were going through, there wasn't social media to see like, oh, someone else feels suicidal or someone else feels depressed. Like now there is all of this here that people can go and see like, oh, there are resources and I'm not alone and someone's telling a story. So I think that that's why when social media can be amazing. So you can say, go follow this account. And, they're so supportive and such great insights into anxiety or depression or whatever it is. So I think that's where social media is amazing and super helpful. So you can do things like that if you see that someone's struggling. If you feel like you can't approach them, or if it's just like, you don't feel like you're in the position. Any recommendations of yes. Shoshana, do you have any that you love? I have some that I love that I'll share, but who do you love?
I have a whole list, but maybe I'll share it later.
Okay,
I can't be put on the spot.
Right, I know. I just put you on the spot. So I'll tell you some like off the bat that I think of like right away. So definitely for anxiety, there's one called CBT School. I love her. She's amazing. Mindful MFT is amazing. She's a marriage family therapist. Incredible. Notes from Your Therapist. She's amazing. Allison. I love Esther Schwartz. I love Bleemy Heller, Unconditional Parenting. She's amazing. Who else? And just like positive ones in general, like I happen to love Shania Dar. I love her. She cracks me up. I love It's a Learning Life. I love Chevy Samet. She is so funny and wise and fantastic. CBT School, right? That's what I said, right? I think I said CBT School. What else? I'm trying to think. Gary V is amazing.
I like Bariana.
I love Gary V. Bariana, she's great.
And she's talk about mental health.
Yes, Ice Life is also, and I forgot to mention her, Ice Life. I'm so sorry. I love that she's like, oh, I'm going to therapy today. Like, amazing. Yay. Thank you for talking about this. This is like, make it normal. Yes, she's going to therapy today. I love that she talks about that. And I even like messaged her to tell her that. Gary V, who else? I want to think of the good accounts that I follow that I love. Power of Speech is great for like inspiring stuff. Any like Humans of Judaism, like things that make you feel good about life and people in general. I love also Tank's Good News, Tank Sinatra. He like originally did memes and now he has a page like Tank's Good News and he only posts like feel good videos. Also Prince EA. I'm gonna put his thing right here. I'm gonna tag it.
You gotta make a list somewhere.
Amazing. I know. I think I'm just gonna like put a list on my page and then you can share it also. He's so great. I'm tagging him right now in the comment. Prince EA, he's so great. There's just so many great accounts, but those are like some of the ones I love. And I literally like, I don't go to my personal account anymore only because I don't really follow that many people, but it like annoys me, It does. It annoys me. No offense to any of my friends who I follow. For the most part, it doesn't annoy me, but sometimes it does. I'm going to post a list of my stories. Yeah. My account here is like just so great. Like I just feel so encouraged and so like feel like the world is going to be a better place with all the good that's on social media. Like that's who I see. And I feel like, and really that's the last point actually I want to make about your mental health. Imadzi with Me is also amazing. Shout out to them. We'd love to share the list too, they said. They're amazing also. Just all these initiatives to like be aware of mental health, talk about it, do more. But my last point I want to make about social media is a lot of the time I'll hear people talking about certain accounts that they follow that like annoy them and they can't stand them and they're like fetching about them. And I'm like, why do you follow them? Like if they're annoying you, unfollow them. Like you're only like you say it's entertaining and it's funny to you, but you're talking about it and it's stressing you out. Don't look at that account. And then even if they don't annoy you, like outright, but like maybe you're looking at it and you start like turning to look at your kids and you're like, what is my life? Then unfollow it, unfollow the ones that are like always like about appearances and about you need to have this and you need to wear this and you need to go here and I'm here and you're not there and just don't look at it. And I don't believe that Instagram is a place for like character development that you have to when you don't like and then introspect, like, why don't I like this person? You have enough of that in the real world in your everyday life. Let Instagram just be the place that you can come to like unwind and like just be happy and like feel good. And that's it. You could deal with character development and like, how to deal with your jealous feelings when you're at work or wherever. It doesn't need to be done on Instagram. So if you don't like someone, unfollow them, mute them if you can't unfollow them because like they're going to notice you unfollow them and then they're going to be mad at you. Don't put yourself in a position every day in front of your face. You are bombarded with things that make you feel bad and that hurt your mental health. It hurts your mental health to constantly see things that make you feel bad, that make you feel like, I don't look like her, I don't dress like that, we don't have that marriage, I don't have kids like that, I don't go on those vacations, I can't afford that vacation. No, I can't go to that gym, I can't eat that food. Don't look. Unfollow it. Unfollow it. Hear me?
Well said.
Loud and clear? Unfollow. So that's it. So I'm going to post a list of the accounts that I love. And Shoshana, you'll also think about some of the accounts that you love.
I'll make a list.
Yeah, and then we can start like sharing them all around. There's so many good ones out there. There's like really yucky ones, but there's so many good ones. And I think that they totally outnumber the bad ones. So I'm going to share who I love and where I walk away feeling happier and inspired. But I think this was super important and such a great conversation.
Yeah.
And I hope that I'm looking forward to seeing more Mental Health Mondays with all the great people that are on here.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for joining, for doing this, for everyone. And thank you for everyone who watched. This is my first live, so it was really scary for me.
Yay!
And see you on the next Mental Health Mondays. If anybody has any